I said that I would do it, so here it is. I have rewatched Breaking Bad for the first time since it originally aired, and here is my review. What I want to focus on is the difference between when I originally watched the episodes as they were released on television and now, over 10 years later, binge watching it, because I think there is a giant difference in those two experiences. As as someone who watched the show as it aired for the most part, I mean, I binge watched the first season. My buddy had it on DVD, showed me the show, banged out the first season. Then from there on, I watched the episodes as they released. And the difference is enormous in these two experiences. I feel like the show is wildly overrated, especially the final episode and final season. I think are a huge dip in quality, but that dip in quality is a lot less noticeable when you're binge watching a show on a streaming service. It's particularly hard to notice that kind of dip in quality when it's spaced just so wildly differently, right? Because season one of the show, like, imagine if you had watched the show as it aired. Season one of the show has 7 episodes. Season 2, 3, and 4 have 13 episodes. Then season 5, this was one of the first shows to do the thing where they separated the final season into 2 different parts. So the first part of season 5, the first 8 episodes, which, keep in mind, season 1 is only 7 episodes. So this 8 episode chunk aired in 2012, and then the other 8 episodes of season 5 aired in 2013. And like during the summer into September. That kind of like prime show time, right? And so imagine having that enormous separation of you watch season 4 one year on as it airs every week for a certain amount of time for 13 episodes. Then the next year you watch half of season 5, 8 episodes. Then the year after that you watch the following 8 episodes. And it's not only watching the show, the seasons a year separated from each other, but each individual episode being 1 week apart. It really gives you a lot of time to sort of reflect on each episode more than you would binge watching, and especially each season, right? Because although in those times you didn't have a ton of people reviewing stuff on YouTube and Twitch or wherever, talking about these shows and analyzing the things in the way you do now, where you just type in an episode of a show as it airs, like I think of like The Boys, and you can get like 100 reviews of each episode of The Boys within like 2 days of the episode airing or like streaming. So, but in those times you didn't have that. Even though YouTube was around, people weren't really doing that. Like there probably was a couple of people, but no one really watched that kind of stuff. What you would do is you would talk to people, friends, family, coworkers, people who are also watching the show. So that also created an environment of a lot of reflection, where I feel like a lot of the critique of shows now, as an episode is released on a streaming service or wherever, it's kind of very echo chambery. There's kind of not the same, you're not getting the same like mixed sort of opinions and sort of deep analysis where you're critiquing it yourself, where somebody tells you something about an episode that maybe you hadn't really strongly considered, and you just literally hash it out and basically debate it right then and there. So season 5, I remember I was thinking prior to rewatching the show that it was like middle of season 3 where Gus's storyline concluded, and then the whole rest of the show, the other 2.5 seasons, were everything beyond that. But that's not actually true. I was kind of surprised by that. The Gus storyline actually wraps up at the very end of season 4, leaving only the final season beyond that. The thing is, keep in mind that the final season is 16 episodes in total, and a lot of those episodes are longer than the previous episodes of previous seasons. Like, they extended the length. So it's kind of somewhat reasonable that I had that idea in my head, because it felt like forever. It felt like we waited way too long to get to the finale, as the final season kind of feels like it's its own isolated story, right? Like when people talk about how great this show is, I always imagine that they're talking about from episode 1 up until the point where Gus's storyline concludes. Because everything beyond that is so unnecessary and uninteresting. The show, even when I originally watched it, and even more now rewatching it and binge watching it, I feel even more strongly that the show should have just ended at that point when Gus blows up. Just end the show right then and there. What we fill in the blanks in our head is so much better than what happened. What happened beyond that is so lame and uninteresting, to the point that they had to make a movie. They had to make a movie just to give Jesse an actual conclusion to the character's story. Because you just don't get that. The finale sucks even worse than I thought it sucked when I originally watched it. Watching season 5 as it aired was especially painful. A lot more painful than binge watching it. As you have these characters like Todd and Lydia, who you just don't care about. And some of the characters that you do care about, like Hank and Mike, just get screwed over. You see the downfall of their characters. You assume that these characters aren't going to make it out of this series, and they don't. And it just makes you feel bad, and you're just annoyed. You're like, oh my god, Gus was such a great villain in this show, and now we have Lydia, now we have Todd. These characters are lame. They're so uninteresting. This final season of Breaking Bad is so tacked on. It blows my mind. Even still, even with me understanding why I could see people saying the first 4 seasons are like a 9 out of 10, and then season 5 is like a 5 out of 10. And to me, that would be glazing the hell out of season 5. I don't know how anyone talks up the finale of this series, as it is so boring. It is so dull. Oh my goodness. It is drawn out. It is lame. I just don't... It makes you care. Like, I thought maybe when I first watched the show, I was maybe a little harsh on characters like Walter Jr. and Skyler. But no, I like them even less watching the show in a form that is so much more easily digested. The final season is so much easier to digest binge watching. Even still, I hated Walter Jr. and Skyler more. Right? It's crazy to me. That's... Whew. But yeah, the final season still sucks. The show I still consider to be wildly overrated. If you honestly think this is the greatest show ever, or even in the top 3, you just haven't seen that many shows. And I advise that you go watch Game of Thrones, or The Sopranos, or something that's not a freaking drama series. It's so weird to me that people ignore almost any genre outside of drama. And you want to say that these shows, a show like Breaking Bad is the greatest show ever. What are you talking about? There's amazing sitcoms. There's amazing animated series. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There's series that are thrillers, that are horror. We're in a time period where we have series releasing on TV. This streaming service, that streaming service, this, here. And there's so much great shows that have come in the past. It's so weird when people categorize best shows ever, and they confine themselves to a couple of AMC, FX, HBO shows. What are you talking about here? And yes, Game of Thrones has a terrible final season and an even worse final episode. But the rest of the series is still awesome. I would rather rewatch the final season of Game of Thrones before I would ever rewatch the final season of Breaking Bad again. Like, this is my first time rewatching the show since it finished in 2013, and I have no expectation that I will ever return to this series in my life. There's just no reason. I would rather just rewatch something good. This is a pile of crap. I've watched through shows multiple times, start to finish. I've watched through The Office, the American version of The Office, 5 times, start to finish. I'd rather rewatch that than this. I've watched through Gilmore Girls 3 times. I'd rather rewatch that again than watch this. Friends. Like, there's so many shows out there that are higher quality, have more consistency than this, and have less of a steep drop off than this. Great show. If this show, Breaking Bad, ended at the end of season 4, Gus blows up, Walt and Jesse talk on the phone, and boom, that's it. Less is more. Fill in the blanks. Let's just assume that they got away with it. And they, you don't need any more story than that. You really don't. And you don't even get that much more story. Right? Like, Walt's terminally ill from the very start of this series. You know that his character isn't going to survive more than, 2 years beyond the point that Gus is taken out. So who even cares? So then that really only leaves you like Jesse and Hank. I would rather just them just assume that they had nice lives. That Jesse stopped doing sketchy stuff. He got his life in order. Have him say that he's just gonna have him just move away. And Hank washes his hands. Oh, because guess what? Gus was the guy. Gus was Heisenberg. Boom, bing, bang, boom, show over. Everyone has a happy ending. I don't even care. I don't give a crap to have characters get a happy ending or not get a happy ending. I'm fine with characters not getting a happy ending. But give me it in an entertaining way, please. Come on. The show is just so glazed beyond all reason, and it's just overrated. And I'd give the series overall 6.5 out of 10.